Sorry, I'm getting over a cold. Great way to start. So, I'm going to talk about declawing today, which recently has kind of been controversial, so I just kind of want to give out the facts and my personal opinion that you don't have to agree with. So, first things first, why do cats need claws? What do they use their claws for? So obviously cats scratch with their claws. Some people complain, oh, they scratch on my carpet, they scratch on my couch, whatever. But it's actually a normal behavior, so it's not just like tearing things up. They actually leave their scent on things when they scratch with their claws. It's also really important for taking care of their claws. It's called claw conditioning, so when they're scratching on things, it's removing that husk. So if you have a cat and you found these little husks of claws around your house anywhere, that's normal. That's just how they care for their own claws when you're not cutting them. They also use their claws to help with stretching. So if you have a cat and you've seen them like lay on their side and they're reaching out and they're grabbing onto the carpet, it's helping kind of pull them farther so they can stretch and get nice and comfortable, not caring about what they may be doing to your carpet. So the most common reasons for declawing cats, I think most common reason anyone ever has is scratching furniture, like this little kitty decided to get inside the couch. No one will be happy with that. There's also cats being playful. They like to use their claws. They definitely use them for hunting in the wild before they were domesticated, so they kind of use them to attack their toys. And then if you have children and their claws are out, sometimes they're not even aggressive cats, they just don't really realize the harm they can do with them. When you're petting your cat and they're kneading on you and they're kind of clawing at you, they don't realize, and so they don't want their cat to be scratching their child. There are also medical reasons where they kind of have to declaw their cat for the health of the cat. So things like tumor necrosis, which is tissue death, and trauma to the owner. So like if you're an elderly owner, or if you have a suppressed immune system, or if you have like problem with your blood clotting, being scratched by a cat could be more detrimental to you than say just my cat scratching me. So the process of declawing, there are definitely several techniques for this, but the gist of it is removing this last bone where the nail grows out of. So if it was you, it would be like removing that last part of your finger. Typically, most vet clinics will use a guillotine tool, which is shown on my next slide, and that just kind of cuts it off like a head in the medieval times. That's not really sterile, it's not really safe, and there can be a lot of things that go wrong with it, such as like not getting the whole bone and therefore leaving bone fragments in the foot. But there is a more modern technique that people have been using now. They use a laser to remove the last bone on the digit, and this is much better than the guillotine because the laser minimizes bleeding, seals nerve endings, and reduces swelling, and it also a lot of times means that there's no use for post-operative wrapping, so they don't have to bandage the foot. A lot of times with this technique, there are less bone fragments left in, and there's less pain or any other things that could occur with declawing your cat. So if you have tried everything else and you do still have to declaw your cat, definitely try to find someone that can use this technique because there are a lot less complications that can happen with it. Okay, so here's a few pictures. This one is the guillotine technique that I was talking about earlier. It just looks like a nail clipper, which it basically is, and they just get in there where the joint is that they can feel and just clip it off and sew it back up so that the foot can heal. These are what the claws look like once they're removed, and here's little kitty all bandaged up, healing, which is what using the laser technique, another thing that you wouldn't have to do if you use the laser technique because it kind of seals it up. And here is kind of a picture of the laser technique. You can see the laser coming in here and kind of soldering off this
and they would guide it through this crooked area rather than like the guillotine would be like straight.
Right, it's harder for the guillotine to kind of move with the natural joint curve, and so that's what the laser technique has an advantage over the guillotine for.
And the cat is under general anesthesia?
Yeah, just general anesthesia, which we all know there's obvious risks that can come with that, but that's for any different kind of thing you could do for your cat. So the possible effects if done incorrectly. So before I go over this slide, I feel the need to mention that it has been studied by the AVMA that if declawing is done correctly, there aren't real side effects like these that are seen in cats. Obviously, they're not going to purposefully do a surgery incorrectly to harm the cat. That would be inhumane. So there haven't been many studies on, you know, if it's done incorrectly, but when it is done incorrectly, these kinds of things have been seen. So there can be medical effects like infections. If it's not sewn up correctly, it doesn't heal correctly. There can be pain, like I said, if they don't get the bone all the way and they leave little bone shards in there. It's like rocking around with glass in your shoe and you can't ever get it out. That wouldn't make me happy. I don't know about you guys. And abscesses, which again goes back into that infection area. There's also behavior. So if there is a problem with it, again, they won't be very happy. So there can be increased aggression, which can lead to, you know, euthanization, kind of leaving your cat because you're like, I'm not dealing with this. Urinating outside of the litter box. So if they feel like they've got glass on their feet, they're not going to want to walk on rocks and sand, right? So they'll do anything to be more comfortable. So they'll be going outside of their litter box instead of going into that uncomfortable space. Less freedom, so you won't be able to let them outside by themselves because their claws are their defense mechanism. Yes, they do have teeth, but the first thing they're going to do is grab and scratch. So if they go outside and don't have their claws and get into some bad situation, they can't really protect themselves, and that puts them in danger. And then also stress, because scratching, like I said earlier, is a normal behavior. It's a sort of enrichment for them. And if they can't do that, they might get a little stressed out. So the pros and cons, kind of just to consider if you're going to be declawing your cat. So a pro, just because of, you know, cats scratching at the carpet and the furniture and the people, would be less likely to surrender or euthanize their cat. Because a lot of people, if they don't want to declaw their cat and they don't want to deal with scratching, they'll just kind of get rid of them, which isn't good. And then it can prevent further health problems for kitty and owners. So if they do have tumors or necrosis, or if the owner is immunocompromised, this can help. But there are some cons. So it's an unnecessary surgical procedure. Cats are trainable, so you don't really have to go through this surgery with them. A loss of natural behavior, like I said earlier, no longer safe for cats to be outdoors, and it can be done incorrectly, which leads to all of those things we were talking about earlier. Some alternatives to declawing. So training them young, like I said, cats are actually pretty trainable. They're really stubborn, but when you kind of force them into it, they're actually really smart. I'm in the process of training my cat how to jump through my arms just because I want to, and he's actually really good at it. So you never know what they can do with some food motivation. You can use enticements like catnip and positive reinforcement. They like being pet, they like giving treats, you know, they're kind of like dogs, just a little more stubborn. There are soft claws, which I found out about a few years ago, and they're super cute. So these are the little blue things on there. They're just vinyl nail caps, and they're put on with like surgical glue, so they stay on through all their scratching and stuff. They last about a month. You can get these done at a number of places. I'm pretty sure PetSmart does it too. And it's pretty inexpensive. I think it's like $15, $20 that you can do them once a month to keep them kind of maintained. You do have to get them redone, or else their nail just keeps growing out, and then they can't shed that hide of their nail, and so that wouldn't be good. So you have to make sure to maintain that if you do choose that route. And also trimming their nails. I just do this with my cat. You can train your cat to be okay with trimming nails. There's a lot of articles online about that, and I've done that. So trimming my cat's nails every 1 or 2 weeks is no big deal, and that keeps the damage to everyone on a minimum. Any questions? And also, here's my cat. I couldn't bring him because my car broke down and I can't bring him on the bus. But this is my cat, Roger.
Okay.
He's beautiful.
Yeah.
And he would be here. He would love to meet you. But
Yeah. Now, how old is Roger?
Roger is 5 years old.
Okay.
He is a neutered male, and he is classy.
And you've had him how long?
My grandma had him for about 2 years before
Okay.
I did. He used to be a stray.
Okay.
Very friendly stray, but she brought him in during the winter and then never let him out. He doesn't like other male cats though, which was weird because after he got neutered was when he started having problems with the other cats. So I adopted him, and now he's my baby.
And he'll live almost up to another 15. You'll have another 15 years with him probably, right? You know how cats can
Hopefully.
go to 20. Yeah, it's amazing. Comments, questions on trimming or declawing, I should say. Anybody have any personal experience? Shirley.
I was a zookeeper in an animal sanctuary, and we had a pair of cougars that lived there, and they had their claws declawed, and they all walked on their hocks, and they had really bad arthritis and joint problems.
Oh, yeah.
And they were in the traveling circus things. So.
You know, if you're gonna have a cat, they come with claws. Get over it, and if you don't want them, don't get the cat. I mean, that's my attitude.
Has anyone heard from the guy from Animalia that used to come and talk all the time?
What did he say?
He would always bring nail fragments or bone fragments from the big cats that they would rescue because people would try to get them declawed and it would never go right. And they'd have all these behavior problems, and he's like, it's because they're walking around on these bones.
Yeah. And the thing is, why would you have a big cat as a pet? That's the other thing, you know.
Great question.
Not a good. Don't get big cats.
Don't get a big cat. Here we go.
So I've always been kind of curious on the technique. Like, I know you should hold the paw in a certain way to help the claw come out, because they're not always going to have their claws out. But when you go to trim them, isn't there a way you should hold them to
extend the nail out a little bit, or the claw, I should say?
Yeah, so it's just kind of, it's more recommended that you kind of have their butt on you and then facing this way. And then you just kind of grab their, like, paw. I'm really bad at explaining things. But you kind of grab their paw and you just kind of massage it. If you have like one finger under the pad and one finger on top, you can just kind of gently push it out. And you just kind of hold it steady so they don't jerk and just kind of clip at an angle. And you can do it with any kind of clippers. I personally bought a pair of cheap ones because I didn't like doing it with my own nail clippers, but you can do it with your own nail clippers too. And you can burrito them, if no one's heard of that, just wrapping them in a blanket so they can't scratch you or escape. I did that a lot at the animal shelter because those cats don't have time to be trained. But yeah, it's just messing around. You can practice while they're kind of relaxed and petting them. That's how you kind of get used to it with them. So like if you just sleep it and just kind of massage the foot.
Yeah, it might become a routine after a while. This begs the question, or next time you're trimming, could you have somebody videotape you or bring the cat in sometime and we'll tape it? You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because it sounds like you're good
He's
at it.
due for it.
See what I mean? We could do it and like make a little, we could add it on to that video later. Excellent. Okay.